Record.
Yeah,
Yes, I got a few emails. So I got all your information then, huh? Great. So you can usually make it at 10 o'clock?
Yes, I was running a little late today, but I was like, okay, I can do this. And I was, next Monday I can't. But you know, when I saw it a while ago, I was like, I can't make every Monday. And then I saw where you did YouTube, you know, and I was like, well, okay, the Mondays I can make it, I can run up there. So, but yeah, I've been waiting for a Marian class. Huge Marian person.
Did I send you the last?
Yeah,
YouTube?
and
Okay.
I was listening to it. The audio was going in and out a lot. And so,
yeah,
I was reading, you know, I was trying to read, but it happens.
Okay.
It happens. At least I could look and read the screens. So it was the first part that I can always go back to it. I think it's up there. But it's the apparitions that I just was not aware of all the ones that have happened that no one really knows about. Next time.
Yes.
And so that really made me go, you know,
Okay, this is Karen and Adela. This is Kate, and that's Mike.
Hi, am I hearing? Hi, hello.
So
Hello.
we'll start with a prayer. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, Lord, for our gatherings here today. Please bless all the participants and then those that will be able to see it on Zoom later in the recordings. Thank you for all the graces you've given us, especially for Father Dat, celebrated his 20th anniversary yesterday, and for all the blessings that you've given our church and our community, and help us to grow to love Mary more. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now at the hour of our death. Amen. Okay, so these apparitions, so I went through what I sent out and we stopped at Lassay, Our Lady of Lassay. So we'll start there. And this guy, Flipper. Sometimes.
Is that speaker supposed to be plugged in or not?
No, when I talked to Lucretia, she said it wasn't working very well. So when I took it out and just speaking in here, it works better.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't pick up what you guys say as well.
Oh, I didn't spell that.
There we go. Sometimes this takes a while. So this is Our Lady of Lesa, and in Poland. And what happened is Mary appeared to this Mr. Thomas Mikalek, and she said, would you build a church? And she said, my son will be respected, and whoever shall call on my intercession will receive my blessing. So he was afraid, and she asked him to go back and tell the villagers and the priests and stuff, and he was afraid he didn't do anything. So she appeared to him again and told him, you know, to stop his sonnets and go tell the villagers, you know, that they should build a chapel here. So he still did nothing. And she came to him a third time. And finally he went and told the people, but the priests did not believe him. And in fact, they threw him in prison for a while because they thought he was lying. And back then, the secular world and the Catholic world were pretty much combined. So you'll see later, they threw this guy in prison, hey, Anita, because he didn't keep Sunday holy. And, you know, he was thrown in prison. Actually, they used to do that in Texas. Do you remember the blue laws?
I do remember that. What? The blue laws?
So they had blue laws in Texas. So all the stores had to close on Sunday. Except they would let the grocery stores and the 7-Elevens, they couldn't sell beer or wine or anything, but they would like rope off a section and they say you could buy bread or something here, or milk, but that's it. So, and if the stores open, they were fined. And then finally someone said, I'm gonna make some money, and they started opening the stores. I don't remember who was the first, HEB or Kroger or Randall's, somebody.
But they weren't penalized for that or anything? They just went ahead and did it and it was okay?
They sued the government and won,
Oh.
and then they said, okay.
That was real common though. I grew up in Ohio and the blue laws were like that in Ohio too.
In Missouri too.
You know.
Yeah,
I guess
because
the-
in Missouri, I know they opened, the stores started opening like the malls and that.
Yeah.
in Like 80, because I remember that was so weird, because when you started to drive at my age, you used to go on Sundays to the parking lots of malls because there was no cars in the mall.
Right.
And so that was safer to practice on the road, so you went there and you had open space, and then when the malls started to open up, it was just like, where do you take the kids to go learn to drive? Because there's no there's no vacant parking lots.
But they still don't let liquor stores open on Sundays.
Correct.
They're left over from the Blue Lodge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it that grocery stores can't sell alcohol until after 1 o'clock or after?
That's correct.
No,
10.
10, no, it was 11, or it was 12, it was 11, or it was 11 and now it's 10. I think it was 12 and now it's 11.
We won't judge you because you know that.
Okay, thank you.
So,
But
yeah,
it's something like that. I've been in line enough times where I've seen people that, and poor people. You know,
so also, they wouldn't let car dealers open up, so they would
Right.
be Monday through Saturday. And then some of them would close Saturday and they would open Sunday, like one in toward Clear Lake. Anyway, so that's all gone, unfortunately. So anyway, they finally released Mr. Thomas, and he pleaded with the people just to at least set a cross out where he had seen the lady. So later on, this Sebastian Talarzik, he was tending his cattle in a field near the spot, and he saw Blessed Mary, or the lady clad in white and surrounded in a great light. And he told the people. So now there's 2 people that went to the parish priest and was talking about visions. So they built a small chapel, and in 1060, so this was 20 years later. Oh gosh, no, 80 years later. The new bishop believed, and he confirmed the apparitions. And this image of Our Lady was made by Father Erasmus, and he was the town mayor. And after all these apparitions came about, he became a believer and became a priest. So then we go to Lithuania in Our Lady of Saluba,
Where was the previous from?
Poland. So here we are, Lady of Saluba. And so in 1457, Peter Gagalas built the first church and put a painting in there, his painting that he bought in Rome, and built the church. And I was just reading an article about Rome and St. Augustine and everything. And there was a lot of debate going on that if you were rich and you wanted to get to heaven, you need to give alms and do and support the church. So there was a lot of these rich people that would go and they would build these churches. And so that's what this guy did. He obviously had a lot of money. And but during the Reformation, the church was taken over by the Calvinists. Calvinists don't allow any statues or pictures in the church. They would go and even whitewash the whole walls and stuff like that. So when this priest there at this church knew that the Calvinists were going to take over, he built an ironclad box and put the painting and the vestments and documentation about the painting and everything in the box. and buried this box near a large rock. So what is this? 150 years later, the children near this rock see Mary. And they went and told the Calvinist preacher there, who was at the church, because now they took over this Catholic church and made it a Calvinist church, Protestant church. So the next day, the people gathered at the rock, and of course, the Calvinist preacher said it was the work of Satan. But when Mary appeared, he believed, and he asked why was she weeping, and she said because the people used to pray here at this rock by this church, and used to pray here. Now they don't pray here anymore. And then she disappeared. So after that, after everybody had seen it and came back and told, the people started returning to the Catholic Church, and there was like 11,000 people at mass celebrated by that rock. So there's this blind man, and he hears of the apparition, and he's like, 80, 90 years old, I guess, pretty old. And he remembered when he helped bury the chest, and he went and they helped him, and he told him, I know where the chest is, but you got to help me. But so Mary restored his sight, and he went and he pointed to where the chest was buried, and they recovered the chest, and it had everything in it was still good shape, the vestments, the chalices, the painting and all that. And then you see the painting above the altar there.
It's a pretty big thing.
So Richard, she appeared, two different times looking differently.
Yeah. Well, that's alive, and then here's the painting that the guy bought.
Oh.
So the painting was in the box, but here's Mary appearing live with the baby, Mary and the child Jesus. So, and then the painting shows Mary and the child Jesus.
Who painted the painting?
He got it in Rome, so
We got in Rome,
yeah.
which is interesting if you look at the color of the Blessed Virgin on that one, and then you look at the paint, that one right there, who painted that one.
Mhm. Well, again, the painting is a painting, and
Right,
more of an icon type painting.
right, which is more in that area.
And this is her actual appearance.
Right, it's a different style.
And here's the basilica that they built. So in Ecuador, Our Lady of Good Success, 1594, with the crozier there. I believe that's a crozier. So this is amazing. In 1582, a simple nun, Maria, was praying, and she saw visions, and she died. And she went up to heaven, and she was given a choice whether to come back to the earth and suffer, or stay up in heaven and suffer for people, for penance for people that weren't doing good. And so she returned back. So they had her laid out, and they were praying with her praying over her the next day, the other nuns, and then she just got up and started praying, So yeah, that doesn't usually happen. And so 5 months later, she was overwhelmed with the suffering, and she asked God, or asked Mary if she could end the suffering. And so she died on Good Friday. But I guess when she went back up to heaven, they gave her another choice, and she reconsidered. And again, they went into the church Easter morning, and there she was praying again, and she decided to continue the suffering. So
Do we know was she suffering from an illness or something, or just the general suffering of life on earth?
I would guess some type of illness or disease or
like
chronic pain. Yeah.
For the sins of healing the sins of others.
Yeah. So she offered up her suffering for the sins of others. Yeah. So later on, she was made the abbess there, or the head. So she was Mother Maria, and she was praying. And so Mary appeared to her and said, she's Mary of Good Success. And she had a golden crozier, and she gave this crozier to Maria because she was governing the convent, and she wanted and she wanted the convent, or the people praying there in the church there, adjacent church, will produce many heroic souls. So she wanted that to keep going. And she wanted this crozier, I don't know if I said, yeah, to be put up at the chair that the abbess would sit in. So people would see that she is head of the convent and the church area, the convent.
Which order was she, do we know?
So, and she appeared several times with prophecies about the 20th century. So I went back and looked at some of them, and they were kind of general. Some of them happened or didn't seem like they were happening yet. And some people wrote in and said, well, we're in the 21st century. Some of this hadn't happened, but I don't know. I'd have to look at them more. If you want to look at Our Lady of Good Success and look at some of the prophecies that she made and see what you think.
Does this happen with a lot of apparitions when they're handed a material, a thing,
Mhm.
a physical thing, like their
Yeah,
here? Or like Juan Diego with a Tilma?
Yeah,
Does this happen often?
several times. Yeah. There's a word for that, and I was going to look it up. It's arthroexictic or something like that. I have to. That's a special word for that things that are not man-made.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. yeah.
So you have the tilma.
Mhm.
There's a stamp that we're going to learn about, small little photo from Venezuela. You know, this crozier
Mhm.
could have been not man-made. Veronica's veil that's in the
Yeah.
Vatican. The veil was handmade, but not the picture on it.
Yeah.
So, and also, well, I guess the shroud, you could count that. And I think there's something else anyway. And there's some pictures that were Mary gave to people that are in cathedrals that weren't man-made. So Mary appeared again and asked for a statue to be made as she appeared with the crozier, and she wanted this statue placed above the prior's seat in the choir. And in 1605, a rebellious nun starts spreading rumors and lies about the Mother Mariana. And later on, after Mary talked to her, or after further prayer, she repented and asked for pardon, which of course Mother Maria gave her. And so Mary appears to the Mother Mariana and shows her how the statue should be made. And there's a picture, or I guess that might be a wall painting of the statue. And well, there's the statue. So later on, you know, what is this? A couple hundred years later, Peru invades Ecuador, and Ecuador didn't have as many army people as Peru. And so the Archbishop of Ecuador asked people to pray a triudum 3 days or 4 days, 3 days. So on July 27th, the triudum ends with a miracle. The statue of Mary opened her eyes, looked downward at people, and then upward to heaven. And this was going on for many hours. And people would come into the church and they would see Mary with her eyes open, looking up to heaven. And thousands saw it. So the miracle ends exactly at 3 a.m. on July 28th. And that's when Peru and Ecuador finally signed the peace treaty on July 28th. So in 1906, they began to remodel the convent, and they found her body. They took her and exhumed her body, and it was incorrupt. So after 300 years, so there she is in there. Usually when the body is incorrupt, the skin is all there, but it could be dark. And sometimes they put on like Saint Teresa was incorrupt. And they put on kind of a wax coating over it to make it look more natural. But the skin is underneath there. The skin hasn't deteriorated. It wasn't just bones sitting in the coffin. So Our Lady of Manawa
Thank you.
in the Philippines. So in 1610, a farmer was walking home and heard a female voice, and Mary appears with the child Jesus and a rosary in her right hand. And she wants a chapel built on this hilltop for the people. And it would end up to be the center of the town. Manawa comes from Tawa, which is she calls. So many miracles came from this veneration. And one thing that happened, there was mountain tribes that burned down the Christian villages. And the tribes attacked Manawa. And the people took refuge in the church, which had a thatched roof. And they would shoot flaming arrows into the church, but it wouldn't ignite the roof. The roof never caught on fire, so they were saved. And of course, that scared the guys off and they ran away because their fire wasn't happening. So a lot of these things, when they put the dress on a statue, a simple statue, they had all kinds of jewels and golden fibers and so forth, and the crown had jewels in it, and they had to lock it up because there were several attempts to steal this because of the jewels, and they put it all behind bulletproof glass. But what you can't see behind her is kind of a metal bars and stuff.
I can see it.
And there's a stairs that goes up behind the image, and it's tradition for people to touch the statue for blessings. And you see people even in the church around here, they'll touch the picture of Our Lady of Guadalupe or the statue of Mary, go up there and touch her feet. Yeah. So the people can go up the stairs and reach through the bars and touch the back of the coat of the back of the statue. And
That's very common in Mexico.
yeah, to get
That's interesting though, they've got bulletproof glass on the front. But you can kind of see it. It's like lattice. It looks like lattice work. Is that the metal that picture you can see it?
I guess that is because you can see the blue background behind.
Is that in where did we build?
Philippines, yeah.
Yeah. So they put the bulletproof glass so it wouldn't be broken into, and then the metal on the back helps protect it from robbers. So in Germany, in Kevlar, you have Comforter of the Afflicted. So in the village, the Kevlar, they had a tragic fire and rages of the 30 Years' War. So there's a lot of destruction, and ravages going on. So Mr. Busman stopped at a cross on the heath of Kevlar to pray for a few minutes. And he heard a voice says, "Here thou shalt build me a chapel." He didn't see anybody as he looked around. And a week later, he returned and he heard the voice again. And again, he returned, and the third time he heard the voice. So he believed, and he was poor, so he didn't have money to build a chapel. So he began saving money. And his wife has a vision of the shrine with Our Lady of Luxembourg. So she had a vision of this picture. Okay. And she had seen the picture that two soldiers had showed her before, and something they grabbed from somewhere and they're trying to sell it. And so Henry asked his wife to find these shoulders, and she did. She found one was left and he was in prison. So he sold her the picture and he put that in the small chapel that he had built. So years later, Father Shink bought the image and they had built a new chapel. And when they had the new chapel, a lady brought her crippled son there and he was cured within 2 days. Also, a woman with open wounds on her legs was healed on the second time she visited. Then they built a new chapel in 1654, and finally the basilica almost 200 years later. So
What country was that in? I missed
Germany.
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 Which
So-
at that time they were. Catholic or Lutheran, is that-
Probably a mixture of Lutheran and Catholic. Yeah,
That was about when. It would have been when.
Because-
Lutheran was-
in the 1550s or so is when the Protestantism came about.
Is that what the site looks like now?
Yeah. I don't have a picture of the whole. So that's the basilica. That's the new chapel. So. Yeah, so what happened, some of it was they, in Germany and some of the other countries around there, the Franks and all that, they let the feudal lord decide whether they were going to be Catholic or Lutheran or Protestant. So if he decided everybody in his area was Catholic, they would all be Catholic. If not, then all be Lutheran. And the guys wanted to go with Lutheran because or Protestant, because when they did that, they could confiscate all the lands that belonged to the Catholic Church. So it was a real stimulus for people, for the kings and princes and stuff to become Protestant, because now they got control of all these lands that the church had. And the church had a lot of these lands that were given to them over the years. And they had peasants working on there, and then whatever they made, it was given back to the church, and then that church gave it out to other peasants. So it was a great welfare structure for the church to have all this land. But when they went to Protestantism, the kings and princes and stuff, they took all this land, now it was theirs, and let all the peasants, have a tougher time. So that's part of the reason that helped Protestantism grow.
It's amazing what people will do in the name of faith.
Yeah,
supposedly.
yeah. So here's Our Lady of the Willow Tree. This is real interesting. So this is in France. So old Pierre used to work on Sundays and feast days. And again, this was against the tradition in that area. Everything was mostly Catholic around there. And, but there was some Protestants. And he had turned to be a Calvinist, a Protestant. And he disliked Catholics and the Catholic faith. And he turned all his children to Calvin. His wife was Catholic. So there was a law against working on Sundays, and because it was both Calvinist, Catholic, it was a law on the books that no one really cared about. No one enforced it. So he would pretend to work, and he was over there by one of the willow trees, and he had his knife, and he cut into the willow tree, and blood flowed out of the willow tree and got all over him, and his arms were covered with blood. So his wife was on the way to church. She was Catholic again, and she saw blood all over him, and she ran up and she said, "What's happened?" He said, "It's not me, it's the tree." So she cut the tree and no blood came out. And so others came by and they saw the blood on him, and they cut the tree and no blood came out. Only when he would cut the tree would the blood come out, flow out. And I guess they did take it because they arrested him for working on a feast day. So the bishop investigated this, and he believed, and they all decided that this, because Pierre was the only one that could get the tree to bleed, that this was a warning for Pierre to change his life and not be so obstinate and not hate the Catholic Church. So he would go to pray near the willow tree, and his Calvinist friends threatened to hurt him if he left the Calvinist religion. That was also a lot of things that happened. People were both sides, the Catholics would beat up the Protestants would beat up the Catholics, and it was a mess. So on March 25th, Our Lady appeared to Pierre, and he was working in a field and saw a lady standing far away on a little hill. She had a white dress and a black veil over her head. And as the lady came toward Pierre, she suddenly zoomed up and she stood right beside him. And she said, "God be with you, my friend." And she said, "What is being said about the devotion to the willow tree? And do many people come to this chapel?" And he said, "Yeah." And she said, "Where does the heretic live who cut the willow tree? Doesn't he want to be converted?" And Pierre kind of, I don't know. And she said, "Do you think that I don't know that you're the heretic? Realize that your end is at hand. If you do not return to the true faith, you will be cast into hell. But if you change your beliefs, I shall protect you before God. Tell people to pray that they may gain the good graces which God in his mercy has offered to them." So the lady moved away, and suddenly realizing they hadn't really said anything or thanked her, he tried to get closer to her. And he said, "Please stop, listen to me. I want to apologize to you, and I want you to help me." She stopped, and already disappearing from sight. And he realized that that was the Blessed Virgin Mary had appeared to him. So he fell to his knees, cried, and said, "Jesus and Mary, I promise you that I will change my life and become a good Catholic. I'm sorry for what I've done, and I beg you please to help me change my life." And there's the basilica, probably. So he returned to the Catholic Church. He brought his son, and all the daughters also returned. He died and was buried under the tree. And in 1656, a shrine was built. So there is the original sign. And you can see how big it is. When I first looked at it, I said, this looked like a little room, but you see about on the bottom left, the two people praying there. So you see how big, that's like a 40-foot ceiling in there. And of course, a lot of the churches, if I remember correctly, I was in Paris and I went to Notre Dame, and there wasn't any kneeling things there. Yeah. So everybody would just pretty much stand or kneel on the floor like this.
They should get fit more people that way.
So when the French Revolution came about, they tore up the shrine and they cut the statue into pieces. So the woman saved the pieces and repaired the statue. And later Pope Pius IX crowned the statue, Our Lady of the Willow Tree, and the Pope Pius XI declared the church a minor basilica. And you can see where there's a piece of the willow tree in the altar. And there have been over 100 miracles reported. So it was
Probably more, right?
Oh yeah.
More
So
miracles.
up to, this could have been written 20 years ago. So there's a piece of the willow tree that's in the altar. So then we go to France. Wow. Okay, we got time. It's one of the neat ones that's coming up in Colombia. I mean, they're all neat, but this is, as an engineer, that's super neat. In 610, St. Gallen founded the chapel in Montreal, Langaste in Quérin, and there's a spring near the chapel so that people can knead bread. He also sculpted a statue of the Virgin and Child. And over time, the chapel collapses and the statue is lost. So 12-year-old Jean Cortel was born deaf and dumb. And she fed the sheep at her native village in La Prunesse, and Mary appeared to her and healed her of her sickness. And that's the first time that Jean hears a human voice. And Mary says, "Can I have one of your sheep?" And she says, no, she must ask her father. She can't give away the sheep. So Mary says, "Go and she'll watch the sheep." So Jean goes to the village and they see that she's cured and talking. And so next day Mary appears again, and Mary asks to build a chapel at that spot. In addition to the kneeling of the miracle of healing, you will find a statue. So this was much later. So Mary directed the father to search the pond for the statue of Our Lady of Eternal Aid. So 1,000 years later, the statue, or 800 years later, carved by Saint Gallen, was found, and there's 15 other apparitions of the Virgin. So the bishop of Saint Brieuc recognizes the apparitions. The chapel was built on the site, and the statue was placed on the inside. And lots of pilgrims traveled to the shrine, and a few days later, other miracles were manifested. So there's the shrine of Our Lady of Eternal Aid. And now we're back to France. Our Lady of Loss.
France is a,
Huh?
France is a place of choice for Mary, huh? She appears there a lot.
Yeah, France and Germany, Italy. Yeah, when I showed you the pictures of Europe, yeah, it was a bunch. So in 1664, the 17-year-old Benoit saw apparition of Saint Maurice, who was a 3rd century martyr. And she was by a chapel, and it was in ruins, and it was dedicated to Saint Maurice. So he warned her that if she remained in that area, the guards would take her flock if they found it there. So told the shepherdess, go to the Valley of Kilns, and there she would see the Mother of God. So she took her sheep to the valley, and she came to a grotto, and then Mary appeared holding the child Jesus in her arms. And Benoit offered to share her bread with her, and which made Mary smile, but she didn't say anything. So for 4 months, Mary came back every day, and Benoit heard her speak. Others could not hear what Mary said. She told Benoit that her name was Mary. So that was from May all the way to August, June, July, August, all those apparitions every day.
On some apparitions, she says who she is, but on others, the town name her like that, or does she always tell her name?
Yeah, for like, when she appeared all the time to Bernadette, she didn't tell Bernadette her name until after 13 times, the 13th.
She said Bernadette until she said, I am the Immaculate Conception.
Right.
And with her saying, I'm the Immaculate Conception, go tell your bishop, I'm the Immaculate Conception, because the bishop kept saying, well, who is this? Who is that? She goes, I don't know. She didn't tell me your name. But at that time, bishops and cardinals, whatever, were trying to make the decision of whether Mary was to be called an Immaculate Conception. And so the only way, no social media, no nothing. I mean, back in that day, no one would have known that was going on unless you were a bishop or somebody. So when Mary said that to Bernadette, and Bernadette went to the bishop and said, she told me to tell you she's the Immaculate Conception. That is when he went, it's Mary. Because how else would this child know Immaculate Conception? Because all that kind of business, church business, was very right here. You know what I'm saying? And that's why he finally believed her, is because he said,
But
Go tell
she's
them.
called Our Lady of Lourdes, right?
Right, yeah.
right,
yeah.
but that was how she found out. She always calls herself Mary, Mother, but I think it's wherever she appears, I think that's how it's the people who give her Our Lady of whatever.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, it varies. Sometimes she says I'm Mary, sometimes she says I'm a lady, good health,
Right.
Immaculate Conception. And as you'll see here, her features change. So on the tilma, she's Indian,
Yeah.
a mestizo.
I always
And we're
understood
gonna look at
it's-
Lavong, and she's a Philippine looking lady.
Yeah.
It's
So-
two, and I was raised knowing that she appeared to people in a way that it made them
They
comfortable.
can relate to
That
her.
you're my mother,
Yeah.
and relate.
Yeah, she's
And
black and,
Guadalupe is a great
yeah,
Yeah.
version of it, and then the Filipinos, and then Poland and all that. I
Yeah.
mean, that's where you can really see it.
so. The lady told Benoit to go to Laos to look there where you smell, look for a place where you will smell a very nice perfume. So you went there and she found an old chapel dedicated to Notre Dame de Bon Rencontre. Bon is good and rencontre is encounter, Our Lady of Good Encounter. And the perfume was good, but the chapel was in bad condition. And Mary met her there as a lady. And she said, I want a new chapel to be built here in honor of my beloved son. And it will be a place of conversion for numerous sinners. And I shall appear here very often. And she said that the oil from the light in the sanctuary would work miracles if they received the anointing with faith. And the Vicar General of Ebram was doubtful. So he went to Laos looking for a miracle. And he saw a lady come in with both legs bent backwards. I just happened to see this on TV. A kid, his legs were actually bent like that, both of them. And he would kind of walk like that. There's one of those ships that go around helping
Mhm.
people. Yeah. And they fixed him. Anyway, so her legs were bent backwards and she was cured, and then she could stand straight up and her legs were good. So he believed and he built the church, and the oil is still used today. And Mary appeared over 54 years to Bennett. So some of the criticism on Medjugorje, which I talked about, do you know where Medjugorje is? You ever heard of that?
I've heard of it.
Okay. Well, it happened back in 1981 to the Six Seers, and then they would see Mary every day. And then over the time, like there's only two of them left that see Mary monthly, or one of them every day, depends. And they said, well, Mary never appeared that many times, it's over 40 years, so it must not be true. Well, that's why I underlined this. She's 54 years to Benoit. So, anyway, so put it short, the bishop in Yugoslavia didn't believe Medjugorje, or believed it first, but it was a communist country, and we think that the communists were on him to stop this believing because it was causing all these people to come. So he changed his mind. So finally the Vatican had to step in and say, yeah, we can't say it is a true apparition until it ends.
Yeah, I was hearing that on
Yeah.
the YouTube, and it was going in and out. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the Pope sent a guy there to oversee everything from the Vatican. So they've got a guy there looking it over. And they also had the visionaries go to Rome, and they interviewed all the visionaries and stuff. And what I've heard is that pretty much they're going to approve the first apparitions. They're going to say, yeah, those seem to be true. But, they don't want to approve an apparition to someone, Karen seeing Mary, and then they approve it, and then they find out Karen is a child beater or something, so they don't want to do something until
But maybe
that-
stop.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a good one. Las Lajas. So 18th century in Colombia, Mary Muisa would walk from her village to another village, Ipiales, and she would go there for work and also to get food and stuff. And if you look here, you see there's a trail that goes underneath the church. It's hard to see here, but she would have to walk along the side of all these cliffs to get to the village. And it was kind of overgrown, and they thought it was inhabited by the devil. And there was a violent storm that came, and she had to run inside this cave. And when she got there, she made the sign of the cross and said, Mary, help me. And she felt someone tap her shoulder. So she went back out in the storm and ran out carrying her daughter. And when she was returning from Ipiales, she sat down to rest. And suddenly Rosa started talking. Rosa, her daughter, was deaf and dumb, started talking about the lady and child. So she said, wow, my daughter's talking suddenly, what's going on? She took the child and ran home. So when people were skeptical about what Mary said, the mother said, but they could see that the child was talking, So later Rosa ran away, and Mary found her in a cave playing with Jesus, and she knew it was Mary and Jesus. So Mary kept most of it to herself, and then Rosa fell ill. The child fell ill and died. So Maria took Rosa to the cave, and Mary brought Rosa back to life. So she finally told her employers in Ipiales, and went to the priest and many others, and they all went to the cave. And they saw this image, which is incredible, of Mary, Jesus, Saint Dominic, and Saint Francis stamped on the wall in the cave, in the rock face. And Mary was handing the rosary, if you can see it on that, to Saint Dominic, and the baby Jesus was handing the cord to Saint Francis.
What's the cord?
Hmm?
The cord.
I guess it's the cord, that they would wear, because that's about all they had. They had the cloak and they had the cord,
Okay, all
the
right,
cincture, yeah,
okay,
around their waist.
okay.
And these two saints were founders of the two orders, Franciscans and the Dominicans, that went to Colombia and helped evangelize Colombia. And they've always had a special devotion to those two saints. So they thought, well, someone went in there and painted the rocks. So they went in there and they took core samples. So that's like a hollow drill that drills into the rock and pulls out. And then you have a long cylinder of what's the rock. And the colors went all the way through. So the colors were like several feet deep into this rock. So here's one of those things that's not man-made. So no paint, no dye. They don't know how it was made. It was just rock that were colored in the rock itself. And they erected this church as a minor basilica with all the bishops. And there was a priest, Father Juan de Santo, who desired to build a bigger church to honor the Blessed Virgin. And he lost his sight, but he still walked all over the place begging for money to build the chapel. And he collected the money he needed, and construction began. And when the church was completed, he got his sight back.
Is that the new one that we're putting the picture?
Yeah, so this is the basilica, and you can see
And that's rock?
where the priest is, or the chair is at the altar, and then the rock is behind it.
So the picture, oh, no kidding.
All right, there's the altar in front,
Right.
and then where the priest sits for the mass, and the two chairs for the
And then that was the picture. Do they have it covered on?
and then the rock face behind it, behind the altar.
Right, and then,
And
So it
there's,
was built in the cave, or they took the rock out of the cave?
no, the rock was still in the cave, and they built the church.
Right there.
You can see where the church backs up to into the wall of the gorge.
How is the church called a basilica?
It's given that by, I don't know if it's the Pope. I believe the Pope has to say that's a basilica. And a cathedral, like I said last time, you usually have a cathedral for every diocese. You can have several basilicas, but you can have, there's a bunch of basilicas in Rome, but you have one cathedral, which I think is Laterne is the actual cathedral for Rome, not St. Peter's.
John Mayer.
John Ladder, yeah. So there's the picture of it at night and
Wow.
you see the,
That's beautiful.
the water going down in the gorge.
That's in Columbia.
Yep. And there's the inside of the cathedral going up to the rock wall and a little closer to the rock wall. And then that's what the rock looks like. So, it's not like it's a little, kind of looks like eyes, kind of looks like ears. No, I mean, that is a definitively a picture of Mary and Joseph and Saint Francis and Saint Dominic.
And when I see her face, I see a Colombian woman, Colombian features right there.
Yep, the dark eyes, dark hair.
Yeah.
And the skin tones.
Yep. So again, it's a non-man-made thing. I have to find that word for that. And there's a bigger picture.
Oh.
How did we build stuff like that?
I know.
Yeah.
Especially back then.
Adrian
But
built
even
them.
now.
I mean, and don't you look at that and you go, they can build that back then, but we built stuff and it's fallen apart in, 30 years. That's just, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just, and churches like
They're
that.
angels, we just call them angels, but they're angels that help build that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I read, my major basilicas is a title given to the 4 highest ranking Roman Catholic churches. All other churches that have the title of basilica are minor basilicas.
Is the one in Washington, the Immaculate Conception, is that a minor?
And I know that it's a basilica when you go in because you will see the umbrella. We're talking about that yellow umbrella. Are you with me? Then basilica.
I don't remember seeing that. I think there's something. Maybe I just overlooked it.
Yeah, there is, because like in San Antonio, the silica of Little Flower, I believe that's a minor basilica. There's only so many too. I think there's 2 of them in Houston, Texas, or something like that.
And there's the
That
night.
is absolute stone.
Oh,
That is-
and
What's that?
all that.
these are all the plaques of people that said, I have received miracles,
No way.
from praying here. My son was cured, or I was cured of cancer, or I can walk now. It's kind of like all the
That's the most-
crutches that are all over Lourdes and Fatima, thousands of crutches. So these are all the miracles. They had to build another room because they ran out of room for this.
Here's that answer. All basilicas have the privilege of being able to carry the Brellino, Ombrellino. It's a red and gold umbrella that was historically used to shade the Pope.
Oh.
And there's a Henton column, a bell on a pole, which would traditionally signify the approach of the Pope. So if you ever go into Basilica, look for the umbrella.
They have this image at St. Elizabeth and Seton and by Bear Creek Park.
Yeah,
By,
it's off 529.
yeah, that's my old church. They have this image there, this statue, and she's wearing shoes.
Mhm.
She's wearing beautiful shoes. I'm like, cause most of the time you see her barefoot, you
Yeah.
know? She's wearing beautiful shoes.
And in the Catholic Herald, you see they had a procession for Our Lady of Laban during Mother's Day.
Our Lady of what?
Laban, this one,
Okay.
Here, and you can see her, she looks
Oriental looking.
Oriental.
Yeah,
Mhm.
She looks like, Asian,
look at that.
what they would be
Oh my
familiar with.
God.
I guess we lost her. She's back in. Good. So in 1785, the Catholics were being persecuted and they went to the village. They had starvation, dangerous animals, bad water. So they saw Mary and Jesus, like the statue appeared to her, appealed to them and said, gather leaves to make tea to combat the bad water. They were all healed and they returned to the village 20 years later, 15 years later. And they built a chapel in the jungle, and they would have pilgrimage to the chapel every year. So in 1805, the Catholics were again under persecution, and they built a chapel in 1886. So the emperor's soldiers killed 30 Catholics at the chapel, and it was set on fire. And in 1901, they built a new church and enlarged it in 1928. But in the Vietnam War, they bombed it. You can see what happened when you bomb a church. Not much left and destroyed. So they rebuilt and dedicated it in 1998, which was the 200th anniversary of the Marian apparitions. And you see there's the original church that was bombed, this one. And then I guess I showed a picture of the church originally. There's the new church, the new church. And I think this is the last one. Yeah. Our Lady of Lynching. I try to get these to around an hour. Okay. That's a big church, isn't it? That's a big church. I'll tell you how big. In 1830, this soldier, Thomas Koloski, was shot in the right leg, and he also had a head injury, and he was dying. So he invoked Our Lady to help him not die, and he in this foreign land, and also he had a wife and children that he wanted to get back to. So Our Lady was wearing a crown, an amaranth dress, and a golden mantle. Now, I went online a bunch of times and tried to find what amaranth is. So I was hoping you guys could tell me, what is an amaranth dress? Any ideas?
Adorn? Another word for adorn?
I don't know if it's kind of maybe a soft fabric. They had them for sale on eBay, but it looks just like flowered dresses or regular dresses or whatever. And amaranth is a seed, and they make medicines out of it. They make a bread out of it, some other stuff. So I don't know what that meant. Anyway, that'll be your homework for next week. Well, next week we're not going to have a session because it's Memorial Day, and so the place will be closed.
Well, she's got the best designer, God.
Huh?
She's got the best designer, God, designed the
Yeah,
whole thing.
okay. Probably has a little A on the side of it or something.
Oh, yeah.
She was holding a white eagle in her right hand, and she promised he would recover and return to Poland. And she said, find a picture that looks like this, and to make it known in Poland, and to have an image of her made, and take a good look at me so that how I appear may be what you find in that image, and put this image in a public place so that people who pray before this image will have many graces. So he returned home near Lichen. He wandered the countryside year after year looking for this image that would be close to what he saw. And in the village of Lagoda, he saw the image in a shrine, a little shrine nailed to a tree. And he saw that she was half closed eyes. She looking down at the white eagles kind of on her chest there. She was full of serenity, beauty. And the cloak had all the emblems of the passion, the crown of thorns, the whips, and so forth, and the spear that lanced the side of Jesus. And she had a golden crown. So he said, oh, that's it. So he took the image and he placed the portrait in his own house. And when he became ill and the priest and the doctor called, they were preparing a funeral for him. And Mary said to him, put the image in the forest. And when they did that, he was cured immediately, and he built a small chapel in the forest. So later on, Mary appeared to Mikola, a shepherd, and Mary predicted a plague if the people did not repent and pray. And again, he was imprisoned for spreading the message, spreading this message. You can see where he put the picture behind her head, put it on the tree. So cholera broke out. People remembered the prophecy and flocked to the image, and people were recuperated. And after 2 years, the image was moved to the Lichen Church. And during World War II, the image survived and because they hid it in a private house. And the basilica is the largest in Poland and the 10th largest in the world. You can see that's pretty darn big.
Okay, saw the color that she was in? You go back, that's what that word is, it's pink or reddish, it's the color.
The color.
The color.
Ah, thank you.
Now we don't
It was
have
like-
any homework.
No homework. Yeah, it was like on the definition, it was further down, it was like, it talked about what you said, and I was like, okay, and then it said red, pinkish reddish color.
Oh,
It
okay.
looked kind of peach, the
Right,
first picture.
well, no,
looked
maybe
kind
it
of
was
peachy.
peach, right, hold on.
That is so beautiful.
Hold on, a pinkish or rosy red, a red ozo dye.
Okay,
Okay.
because I kept thinking it was the type of fabric,
Yes.
but it's
right.
not the type of fabric,
It's the
it's a
color,
color.
it's the, and I was waiting, and you can see that color right there, and then the other one, the first one you showed us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the
There you
pinkish
go.
color, yeah.
And what's the meaning of the eagle? There's gotta
I
be-
know, I don't understand the eagle thing, I thought it was a dove, but it's an eagle.
I don't know, but that could be homework,
That looks more like a dove, though.
yeah,
And those are eagles.
so that's it.
And I wonder, see how the color of those, of the pews, how they're in that reddish color.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was
that could be redwood too, but
Yeah.
that's,
Right, but I thought.
looks nice though,
It does look nice, I was wondering if that's because of part of what.
yeah.
Richard, do you know of this event beforehand, like that you could just say, hey, you that don't know anything, could you, here's this information? I would have loved to attend something like that.
Well, if
They
you look
pray
at,
the rosary there and everything.
do you get this?
No,
Okay, you
you
need,
don't subscribe to that?
if you make a donation to DSF, then you get that every week,
Oh, okay.
all right?
Mhm.
And in the back, this is all the stuff that's going on for the next month. So you can have that. Look at turn the page back. So that's all the events going on. So you could look there and see everything that's going on.
Oh,
And so you can have that.
oh, thank you.
And then we asked, I guess it was you that asked about the water, because there's so much water and things, by the stream and this and all that. And I was reading today and it said, because water is so universal, you can't live without water. Plants can't live without
Yeah.
water. Water is just so necessary and it comes in all these shapes and sizes, and water comes down from heaven and it's used for your body, for plants.
Water for
All
life.
life, yeah,
Water
yeah.
is,
Yeah,
helps live life.
I think of purity when I see water. It's just pure,
mhm,
so pure.
yeah. And it's a bad analogy, a bad analogy for the Trinity, liquid, ice, and steam, but it's still water.
Right.
But it's not a good analogy because it's still three different things, but not one at the same time. That's why. So, that's it. That's all I got, unless you have some more questions.
Awesome. None next week, but the following, week.
Yeah, so today's the 21st, is that right?
22nd.
22nd, so the 29th, the end of the month is like Memorial Day, next weekend, next Monday. So we won't have,
June 5th.
hmm?
June 5th.
It's our next class.
Yeah, June 5th is the next class, yeah. And we have them, probably maybe 4 more classes from the 5th,
That's it?
yeah, through the 1st of July or so.
This is so, I so look forward to this.
And then I know I have one because I won't have one on July 4th, which I think is a Monday,
Tuesday.
or
Tuesday, but everybody usually has.
so they'll
Monday.
take off Monday, yeah. And there's another guy that wanted to help me with apologetics, but he teaches at one of the schools, so he's gonna come in and maybe do a session or two with us. And I'm gonna be in Florida on the 20th.
You
'Cause,
and Carol?
yeah,
Oh,
nice.
nice.
my son lives there. We're gonna go there, or it's Carol's birthday. She's July 21st.
Awesome.
And so we're gonna go there. is gonna be 70. So I can't talk about it. It's 39, yeah.
So July. Fourth, fifth, we're not having
I
it?
guess the
July
third,
July
we won't have a
Okay,
class.
July third.
I'll send out a notice to everybody. We
Okay.
won't have class this coming Monday.
So the fifth, the twelfth, the nineteenth, the twenty-sixth of June. And then we skip and then we went to the.
Wait for your email.